But what does it mean for those two programs? I just talked to you about the dominance of those two programs. So where are they going? Where are they headed? What does it mean for Clemson and Alabama? Well, let's look at that for a moment. I want to look at it from the Alabama perspective first. So the Tide loses the second game this year. They're not going to win the national championship, it looks like. Looks like they're not going to win their division, and it looks like they're not going to win the SEC. Now, could they? Yeah, maybe. Like, there's small paths there, okay? The door is not completely shut. But what I did see a little bit on social media and listening to some other things out there was everyone's closing the gap on Alabama. Oh, this is a clear shift in the tenure of Nick Saban at Alabama, the prowess of Alabama. I totally disagree. I think Alabama's going to be just fine. Just fine. Look what it just took to beat Alabama. Now you can say, well, it's been twice. Yeah, I get it. Look at the 3 road environments that it took to threaten Alabama this year. 105,000 attended the game in Austin, Texas. Alabama still won. 101,000 attended the game at Tennessee, and they needed a kick to go over the crossbar by a foot after Bama missed a kick in order to get a win. 102,000 attend the game in Death Valley on Saturday night, and they need a 2-point conversion attempt in the first overtime to beat Alabama. Folks, like, Alabama's going to be okay. Alabama is still Alabama. It takes unbelievable venues and great performances from elite teams that have to scratch by a play or a kick here or there in order to beat them. They're going to be okay. And this isn't even a great Alabama team. They don't have the wide receivers that they've had, nor will have. I don't think their offensive line is quite what their offensive line has been or will be in the future. You think Nick Saban is not going to recruit at the level necessary to rebuild those two areas of his football team? You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. Alabama is going to be just fine. Okay, the average of those 3 attendance is 103,000, by the way. So they're 1 and 2 in those 3 road environments. Guess what? Last year, guess what it took to beat Alabama? 100,000 in College Station and a kick that just went in the upright. And then it took Georgia, historically great defense, in a national championship game environment. Like, it's still not easy to beat Alabama, folks. They're not going anywhere. Clemson, on the other hand, I don't quite feel as confident about Clemson. Why is that? Well, people are like, you're a Clemson hater. Nope, not at all. Absolutely not. In fact, I thought Clemson was on one of the more historic runs. It just happened to coincide with a Bama run. But the Clemson run that we saw over those few years with Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, that was as good a run of college football as we've seen in a long time. And it's incredibly hard to sustain that. And I do think that Clemson has clearly fallen down a little bit from what they were when they were winning those national championships in that heyday run against Alabama, it seemed like every other year. I'm concerned because of the teams that they're losing to and the teams that are playing them close. Okay, it doesn't take those 100,000 seat environments and a kick that barely goes in. It doesn't take that. It doesn't take the 2-point conversion in the first overtime from a good LSU team. I mean, look at their last 3 losses. When you look at Clemson, they lost at Notre Dame, who lost to Stanford and Marshall in that stadium this season. They lost to Pitt. They lost to North Carolina State. Those are the last 3 losses for the Clemson Tigers. Doesn't that ring a little bit different than Bama's 3 losses? LSU, at Tennessee, and Georgia in the Natty? Right? Like, it rings a little bit different. By the way, they lose to Notre Dame, and they played 1-possession games and wins against Syracuse, Florida State, and Wake. Right? Like, it's different. You've got to be playing at the top end of college football to play with or even try to beat Alabama. That's not the case with this Clemson team. They are not good enough right now on the offensive line, and they're not good enough at quarterback. And the numbers bear that out. The data bears it out. Clemson's offensive line is not playing very well over the course of the last 2 years. Okay, when you look at this year, they're 54th in yards per carry in the country. That's not good enough. Last year, they were 56th in yards per carry. So they're not even in the top 50 in yards per carry. You cannot be that and be elite. I totally disagree with the notion that you can be a non-running team and be an elite college football program, because that's what we're comparing them against. Not if they're good. Yeah, Clemson's good. They're not elite right now. So they've clearly fallen down a step from where they were. Their quarterback situation, unsettled. You know, I had people take off on me on Twitter like, well, how can you call their quarterback situation unsettled? Well, they continue to pull their quarterback in order to try to come back from deficits against teams that I don't think are very good, and it didn't work on Saturday night. By the way, that game wasn't particularly close, and that's a Notre Dame team that's totally one-dimensional, cannot throw the football very well, and ran it effectively against a Clemson defensive front that we thought was the strength of their team. Clemson has clearly fallen down a notch from where they were at the heyday of their run under Dabo Swinney. I can't say the same for Alabama. Alabama's going to be fine. Look what it took to beat Alabama in their last three, and in particular in the last two this year. Last thing I would say on these two teams, Bama has this weird crack in the path, right? LSU loses, all of a sudden they get in, and if they win the SEC championship game over a team like Georgia, they would probably still get in. So like there's this meandering path still for Alabama that keeps them alive. And I know that, you know, people are like, no way. Yes, way. Clemson, even with a loss, with that resume, absolutely not. All right, committee? Absolutely not. They were going to be a really bad participant as an undefeated this year, much less a team that actually lost a game. Okay, like Clemson's done. Committee, put them out of their misery. Their resume is not very good. They're not very good in the eye test. Nothing keeps them in the loop. Nothing keeps them with hope except for the ghost of Deshaun Watson and Hunter Renfrow and Trevor Lawrence, and those guys aren't walking through the door, okay? Clemson, this year, this Clemson team is done. Absolutely done.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy that clip, make sure you click subscribe somewhere down here. From game highlights to exclusive interviews and rankings, we've got everything you need as a college football fan right here, College Football on Fox.